Hi, I'm Antonio Mora. If you've watched the HBO series Chernobyl, odds are you wouldn't want to live anywhere near a nuclear power plant. But should nuclear power plants be feared, or is nuclear power an essential component of efforts to reduce carbon emissions and their effects on climate change? Chernobyl's gripping portrayal of the world's worst civilian nuclear disaster inspires fear, if not outright terror, at what happened in 1986 when one of the plant's reactors melted down in Ukraine. The resulting incredibly hot fire sent massive amounts of highly radioactive dust into the atmosphere. Radioactive fallout covered most of Europe. Certainly, the HBO dramatization exaggerates. Anyone watching comes away with the impression of untold numbers of deaths, both as an immediate result of the Chernobyl explosions and in the weeks that followed. In fact, Chernobyl is the only accident in the history of commercial nuclear power that killed people with radiation. Even so, only 30 people are believed to have died directly from the accident and lethal doses of radiation. Another 14 radiation-induced cancer deaths resulted among the 134 people who were initially hospitalized with radiation sickness. Increased cancer deaths among employees and nearby populations remain an unproven and controversial issue. Some studies have estimated that thousands, even hundreds of thousands of premature deaths were caused by the radiation released. Even today, a large part of Ukraine remains uninhabitable. Known as the Chernobyl exclusion zone, it extends about 20 miles in every direction from the power plant. The 1979 Three Mile Island accident in Pennsylvania had already enhanced the credibility of anti-nuclear groups, even though nobody died or was hospitalized there. Reported increases in cancer deaths in that area also remain hotly debated today. The double whammy of 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl effectively stopped the construction of nuclear power plants in the United States for almost 3 decades. The Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, that was caused by a tsunami that followed an enormously powerful earthquake, also exacerbated fears of nuclear plants. While nobody immediately suffered from radiation sickness, more than 100,000 people were evacuated from the Fukushima area, and a large exclusion zone remains uninhabitable. In light of these disasters, it would be easy to react emotionally and dismiss nuclear power as a viable energy alternative. But at a time when reducing greenhouse emissions is an almost universally accepted need, does it make sense to discard one of the most environmentally friendly sources of energy, especially when nuclear plants are increasingly safe? Not only that, but once a nuclear power plant is built, it has very low operating costs, doesn't pollute much because it produces no carbon dioxide or methane, is very reliable as opposed to wind or solar energy, generates huge amounts of energy, and while not technically renewable, it's pretty close. Nuclear energy proponents also point out that all the deaths caused by nuclear accidents are about the same number as those caused by coal emissions every day. Another major issue is that as nuclear plants shut down, they are mostly being replaced by natural gas or coal, increasing emissions. Analysis by the nonpartisan think tank Third Way says, quote, that losing all of America's economically struggling nuclear plants, roughly half the existing ones today, would remove so much carbon-free power from the electricity grid that it would take the next 11 years of growth in renewables to make up for it. Look at the examples of Germany and France. The Germans decided to phase out nuclear power in the aftermath of the Fukushima disaster. Despite great strides in increasing energy production from renewable energy sources, Germany has seen little reduction in carbon emissions. France, on the other hand, bet on nuclear. It emits less than 1/10 of the world average of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour, and the French enjoy far cheaper electricity than their German neighbors. Of course, all isn't rosy when it comes to nuclear energy. It produces large amounts of radioactive waste that are difficult to transport and dispose of. Also, current laws in the U.S. make construction of new nuclear facilities almost prohibitively expensive, especially when compared to other countries. And they take a long time to build. But what's the alternative? Renewable and other clean energy sources don't seem to be the solution, at least not yet, because those sources aren't growing enough soon enough. Hydroelectric energy production isn't likely to grow much at all, as most of the best sites have already been dammed. Advances in solar or photovoltaic energy could be a game changer, but there's no way of knowing how quickly those advances will come or how fast they can be implemented. Wind, like solar, is getting cheaper, but it's not always available. Providing clean energy for future generations is one of humanity's greatest challenges, and this commentary is only meant to be a conversation starter. But it's a conversation that must be had, preferably independent of the understandable but unfounded fears of the nuclear accidents of the past.